India versus Pakistan, the war. No one survives a chilling reality check. Tensions have flared for decades between two nuclear-armed neighbors, India and Pakistan. But what if the unthinkable happens? What if a conflict between these rivals escalates beyond control? This isn't just another border dispute or skirmish. It's a powder keg with devastating potential, a war so catastrophic, so all-consuming, that experts warn no one would truly come out alive. From nuclear fallout to mass destruction, the stakes are terrifyingly high. What would such a war look like? How fast could it spread? And why does the world hold its breath every time tensions rise? Join us as we dive deep into the darkest scenario on the subcontinent, a conflict where survival isn't guaranteed, and the consequences would be felt for generations. Tensions between India and Pakistan have always simmered, but now they've boiled over. What started as scattered skirmishes near the line of control in Kashmir has exploded into all-out military conflict. Indian fighter jets are striking hard. Pakistani forces are shooting them down. For the first time in decades, these two nuclear-armed neighbors are teetering on the edge of full-scale war, and it's not just regional anymore. If this war goes nuclear, the entire world will feel the fallout. Because in a nuclear war between India and Pakistan, there are no winners, just ashes. But how did it come to this? It all began in late April with a deadly assault that shook the region. Gunmen believed to have crossed in from Pakistan slipped into the Indian-controlled area of Kashmir. Their target? Pahalgam, a peaceful resort town known for its beauty. But that day, it became the scene of horror. In a brutal close-range attack, the terrorists opened fire on crowds of Indian tourists, killing 26 and injuring dozens more. It was the worst civilian attack the region had seen in years. Omar Abdullah, the top elected official in Indian-administered Kashmir, called it the most devastating assault on innocent lives in recent memory. The timing, the brutality, the symbolism, this wasn't just terrorism, it was a spark to a powder keg. India didn't respond immediately, but the silence was strategic. For nearly 2 weeks, the Indian government demanded action from Pakistan, any sign that it would crack down on the terror group suspected of organizing the massacre. But Pakistan denied any involvement, instead calling for an international investigation. To India, that wasn't nearly enough. Behind the scenes, Indian intelligence had been tracking multiple militant groups operating from within Pakistan's borders, groups New Delhi believed had been allowed to thrive unchecked. And while India waited, Prime Minister Narendra Modi made it crystal clear, there would be consequences. We will hunt down every terrorist and their backers. We will not break. Terrorism will never go unpunished. This was no longer diplomacy, it was a declaration. Then came the retaliation measured at first. India revoked visas, expelled military personnel, suspended the Indus Water Treaty, a decades-old agreement that regulates crucial water sharing between the two countries. That move sent shockwaves through Islamabad. Pakistan called the suspension an act of war, a claim that may have been political posturing, but the tension in the air was very real. And then India crossed a line. Frustrated by Pakistan's inaction and tired of waiting, India launched its own operation, a direct strike against targets it believed were harboring militants across the border. The message? If Pakistan wouldn't deal with the problem, India would. Now the two countries are in open conflict. Fighter jets in the sky, missiles in the air, armies at the ready. The shadow of nuclear war looms larger than ever because both nations hold nuclear arsenals, and both have doctrines that allow for first use in defense of sovereignty. If this war continues to spiral, if cooler heads don't prevail, we may all be witnesses to the unthinkable, because this isn't just about Kashmir anymore. It's about what happens when two nuclear powers, deeply entrenched in history, pride, and pain, finally decide to settle the score through force. And if it ends in mushroom clouds, no one walks away unharmed. So what happens next? Does one side back down? Could diplomacy still have a chance? Or are we witnessing the countdown to something far worse? Tell us what you think in the comments. And if you want to explore how a nuclear war between India and Pakistan could play out, check out our next video right here, or click the one on screen now. At dawn on May 6th, the skies over Pakistan lit up with fire and fury. India had launched a series of precision airstrikes, striking deep into Pakistani-controlled territories, including Kashmir. According to Indian officials, these weren't attacks on Pakistan itself, but surgical hits against militant camps. Their message? These were focused, measured, and not meant to escalate. India emphasized that no Pakistani military bases were touched, but the fallout told a different story. When the dust settled, Pakistan was counting bodies. Officials reported 26 civilians killed, with 46 more injured, including the tragic bombing of a mosque that left 13 people dead, one of them a child. That was enough to cross a line. Pakistan didn't wait long to strike back. Within hours, Islamabad claimed it had shot down 5 Indian aircraft, including a French-built Rafale, a Russian Su-30, and a MiG-29. They also said they downed a drone and multiple Indian quadcopters. India? It's staying quiet, no confirmation, no denial. But what can't be ignored is what's happening along the line of control, that tense, unofficial border slicing through Kashmir. Reports now say Pakistani shelling is pounding Indian-controlled territory. Casualties are mounting. 10 civilians dead, 48 injured, and firefights are erupting across multiple checkpoints. The ceasefire, already fragile, is shattered. And we've seen this play out before. Back in 2019, a suicide bombing on an Indian military convoy killed 40 paramilitary troops. The group behind the attack, Jaish-e-Mohammed, is based in Pakistan. While Pakistan denied involvement, India saw red and launched airstrikes then too. But this time is different. The April attacks in Pahalgam didn't target soldiers, they targeted tourists, families, children, civilians. That's not just an escalation, that's a red line. Here's why everyone from Washington to Tokyo to Berlin is paying attention. India and Pakistan both have nuclear weapons, and the longer this conflict smolders, the greater the chance it ignites a nuclear exchange, a nightmare scenario with no survivors. According to global defense analysts, both nations carry similar nuclear capability. India is believed to hold around 172 nuclear warheads. Pakistan's stockpile is right in the same ballpark. What makes this terrifying? Neither side has a clear no first use policy. If they feel cornered, nukes are on the table. And if that happens, we're not just talking about regional devastation. We're talking about global catastrophe. What comes next? Will diplomacy step in before the next missile launches? Or is the subcontinent heading toward a war that could change the face of the planet? This conflict is spiraling and fast. And in a world full of global hotspots, the one between India and Pakistan just became the most dangerous. So now we ask you, could this clash lead to nuclear war? Can the international community intervene in time? And what should the US do if things go south? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to explore just how devastating a nuclear war between India and Pakistan could be, click the video on your screen now. Let's be clear, Pakistan may trail behind India in nuclear strength, but not by much. With an estimated 170 nuclear warheads, it's right in the same league. It's no coincidence. Both nations have clearly embraced the terrifying logic of mutually assured destruction, ensuring that if one pulls the trigger, the other can respond in kind. But when it comes to how those nukes are delivered, the picture starts to shift. India has been in the nuclear club longer. Way back in 1974, it shocked the world by testing its first nuclear device, becoming the 6th country ever to do so. Pakistan didn't join the club until 1998, nearly a quarter century later. That head start matters, especially when it comes to delivery systems. India has multiple platforms for launching nukes. Air, with advanced aircraft like the Rafale, Mirage 2000, and Jaguar ISIB, India can drop up to 48 nuclear bombs from the skies, according to the Arms Control Center. C. India's Navy brings its own muscle with ship and submarine-launched ballistic missiles like the Danish range, 217 miles, in the K-15 range, 466 miles. But it doesn't stop there. India is also working on the K-4, a sub-launched missile with a massive 2,174-mile range. That means it could hit virtually anywhere in Pakistan without ever leaving the Indian Ocean. And then there's the land game. India fields 4 types of ballistic missile systems capable of firing 64 nuclear warheads straight from home soil. The Agni 2 and Agni 3 stand out, with ranges of 2,174 and 3,106 miles, enough to reach far beyond Pakistan if needed. And new mobile versions of these missiles are in the works, making India's arsenal harder to track and even harder to stop. Pakistan entered the nuclear arms race later, in 1998, and most of its current warheads are believed to be in the 5 to 12 kiloton range. For context, that's a bit smaller than India's top-end nukes, which reportedly pack up to 40 kilotons of explosive force. When it comes to delivery, air power is Pakistan's main method. It relies on F-16s, Mirage 3s, and Mirage 5s, all capable of carrying both conventional and nuclear payloads. This gives Pakistan the ability to launch around 36 nuclear warheads from the air, less than India, but still more than enough to leave a smoking crater where any major city used to be. Sea and land-based options exist for Pakistan too, but they're less developed and not as far-reaching as India's growing arsenal. And when we're talking about nuclear deterrence, range equals power. So what does all this mean? While both India and Pakistan have the power to devastate each other, India holds the upper hand: more delivery systems, stronger warhead yields, and greater reach. It doesn't just have the ability to strike, it has the strategic flexibility to strike from anywhere, at any time. Still, in a nuclear exchange, there are no winners. Both sides would suffer losses no amount of military power could ever justify. But the fact remains, the trigger is there, the weapons are loaded, and the stakes have never been higher. Now the big question, if this conflict keeps intensifying, who pulls the trigger first? Can either side really afford to? Or will diplomacy find a way to step in before we all fall off the edge? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to understand what a full-scale nuclear war between India and Pakistan would actually look like, don't miss the next video. In the high-stakes world of nuclear capability, Pakistan is still trying to find its sea legs literally. While it's developing the Babur 3, a sea-launched version of the Babur 2 cruise missile, that missile has yet to be fully tested from a submarine. That's a crucial weakness. Without a proven sea launch capability, any move from the water would likely be picked up by India long before it becomes a threat. On land, things are more serious. Pakistan is believed to have around 102 nuclear-capable missiles spread across 6 missile groups. Most of these have short ranges, though 2 newer ones, Shaheen 3 and Shaheen 1A, could reach 1,708 and 559 miles, respectively. It's a solid arsenal, but India still has the edge, because India can do what Pakistan can't, launch from submarines. It also has more powerful ballistic missiles and better reach. Yet geography equalizes the playing field. These two neighbors share a border, and when countries live this close, range matters less. So what happens if the unthinkable occurs? What if they go to nuclear war? That's not just a hypothetical. Back in 2019, as tensions between the two countries flared once again, researchers published a chilling study. It didn't just guess what a conflict might look like, it mapped it out in disturbing detail. Even more unsettling, the study projected 2025 as a plausible year for such a war to erupt. It all begins unsurprisingly in Kashmir. The scenario starts with a flare-up along the line of control, with troops massing and firefights breaking out. We're not quite there yet, but we're uncomfortably close. If Pakistan starts to feel cornered, the study suggests, its leaders might panic. And frankly, they'd have reason to. In a head-to-head conventional war, India holds nearly every card, over 800,000 more active troops, double the number of reserves, and a defense budget that dwarfs Pakistan's $75 billion versus just $7.5 billion. India is also dominant in the air, at sea, and with its ground armor. If a traditional war breaks out, Pakistan knows its chances of winning are slim. So according to the study, it might choose the unthinkable. Go nuclear early. The first move? 10 tactical nukes, each with about half the power of the bomb, dropped on Hiroshima. These wouldn't hit Indian cities. Instead, they'd explode in the air, just inside Pakistani territory, aimed at Indian tanks and military units crossing the border. India wouldn't take that lying down. It would retaliate quickly, firing back with 20 nuclear warheads, targeting Pakistani airfields and nuclear facilities. The attacks would likely come as airbursts, meant to destroy infrastructure and weapon stockpiles while causing enormous fires and devastation. The skies over South Asia would turn black with smoke. and this is where it spirals. The study imagines the next day. Pakistan, now fully committed, launches a second wave, this time hitting Indian air bases, army posts, and its own nuclear depots. India responds with more strikes, targeting Pakistani military hubs. At this stage, the war reaches the cities. Neither side backs down. In just a few days, they unload their entire arsenals, possibly hitting 250 urban areas in total. The human cost is unfathomable. Between 50 and 125 million people could die, depending on how powerful the bombs are. That's not just local devastation. The world wouldn't walk away unscathed. Smoke from the fires could block sunlight for months. Crops would fail. Global temperatures would drop. The entire planet would feel the aftermath of a war that started with border skirmishes and panic. This isn't science fiction. This is a possible reality, one we might be inching toward faster than we think. If India and Pakistan ever launched their full nuclear arsenals at each other, the war itself would only be the beginning of the horror. What comes after? That's where the real nightmare begins. Let's start at ground zero. Both societies would be brought to their knees. Their cities, many of them large, densely populated hubs, would be reduced to radioactive rubble. Entire regions would become uninhabitable for decades, maybe even forever. Roads would be destroyed. Hospitals gone. The survivors, millions of them, would face a grim, post-apocalyptic reality with no clean water, no medical care, and no way out. And that's just the local impact. Globally, the fallout would reach far beyond South Asia. Even if no other nation joins the fight, the planet itself would suffer and take hundreds of millions of lives with it. How? It's all about the smoke. Remember that 2019 study on an India-Pakistan nuclear conflict? It predicted that the first Indian strikes alone would send massive plumes of black smoke high into the sky. That smoke isn't just a side effect, it's a global threat. When two countries exchange between 100 and 250 nukes, it's not just war, it's a climate disaster. The numbers are jaw-dropping. That war could inject 16.1 teragrams of black carbon into the upper atmosphere. 1 teragram is about 2.2 million pounds, so we're talking over 35 million pounds of soot. And that's assuming each nuke is only 15 kilotons. If either country uses 50 kiloton bombs, the amount of black carbon nearly doubles. This black carbon doesn't fall back to Earth right away. Instead, it gets trapped in the stratosphere, where it heats up rapidly under the sun. And there it stays for years, blocking sunlight from reaching the Earth. The result? Crops fail, temperatures plummet, rainfall dries up. Welcome to nuclear winter. And this isn't just theory. Back in 2009, The Guardian reported that even a small-scale nuclear conflict could release 700 million tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. That's more than what the entire UK emits in a year, released in just a matter of days. Sure, the soot might cool the planet at first, but once that clears, the CO2 takes over. Then comes the heat, fast and brutal. So where does that leave the rest of the world? In the years after the war, every country on Earth would face a deadly agricultural collapse. Famine would spread, economies would crash, and after the cold years fade, global warming would hit us harder than ever, bringing rapid sea level rise, drowning coastlines, and forcing mass migration from flooded cities. In short, no one wins. India and Pakistan might be at the center of the conflict, but the whole world would pay the price. The devastation would be immediate, but the ripple effects would last for decades, maybe centuries. The terrifying truth is this: one regional conflict could trigger a global catastrophe, and once those missiles fly, there's no turning back. Let's zoom in on one of the most terrifying ripple effects of a nuclear war between India and Pakistan agriculture. Because even if you live halfway across the world, your dinner plate would feel the impact. According to that 2019 study we've been referencing, a nuclear exchange between these two countries wouldn't just devastate the region, it could shut down farming across the planet. That's not an exaggeration. See, crops need three things: sunlight, warmth, and rain. But after 100 to 250 nuclear bombs explode, a thick layer of black soot would rise into the upper atmosphere, blocking out the sun and cooling the planet. Rainfall would drop, temperatures would plunge, Farming wouldn't just slow down, it could grind to a halt. Imagine this. Fields from Iowa to India suddenly can't grow wheat or rice. Corn won't sprout. Vegetables die off. Livestock starve. The global food supply collapses. And the consequences? Catastrophic. That initial death toll, 150 million or more from the direct attacks, would skyrocket into the billions as famine spreads. India would be hit especially hard, its survivors left without a stable food system. But it wouldn't stop there. China? America? They're not safe either. Both countries could lose hundreds of millions as food runs out and chaos takes hold. No corner of the planet would be spared. And this horrifying scenario assumes only India and Pakistan are involved. But what if others join in? Let's talk alliances. India has ties with both Russia and the United States. It gets much of its military gear from Russia and has received political support from the US in the past. Pakistan? Its closest ally is China, another major nuclear power. Right now, none of these big players want a seat at that table. A nuclear war between India and Pakistan would already be disastrous enough. But if China, Russia, or the US stepped in, it wouldn't just be a catastrophe, it'd be the end of the world as we know it. Thankfully, that remains a worst-case scenario, and one we're unlikely to see. Unlikely, but not impossible. Here's why. India has a no-first-use policy when it comes to nuclear weapons. That means it won't strike with nukes unless it's attacked first. It reaffirmed this in 2003, but added a caveat: biological or chemical attacks could also justify a nuclear response. And over the years, some political leaders have hinted that the policy might need to change, especially during times of high tension with Pakistan. Still, India hasn't officially changed its stance. Yet, Pakistan, on the other hand, plays by different rules. Since day one, Pakistan has refused to commit to a no-first-use policy. It keeps the option to strike preemptively if it feels threatened, and that makes every military clash between these two nations dangerously unpredictable. So while we haven't hit the point of no return, the clock is ticking. The wrong move, the wrong moment, or the wrong leader could tip the balance and turn a regional conflict into a global apocalypse. Now let's be clear, Pakistan isn't eager to launch a nuclear strike. The country knows full well that pushing that button could mean signing its own death warrant. But if things ever spiral into a losing conventional war against India, that calculus could change. In that kind of no-win scenario, Pakistan might decide it has nothing left to lose and shift from using nukes as a threat to actually using them. Its military doctrine leaves the door open for that exact decision. And if that moment ever comes, the chain reaction of destruction wouldn't just rock South Asia, it could spark global chaos, the kind that makes headlines for generations. So here's the big question. With tensions rising between India and Pakistan once again, could it really happen? Could either country actually go nuclear? And if they did, just how far would the damage reach? What would that look like for the rest of the world? We want to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below, let's talk about it. And don't forget to subscribe to The Military Show for more real-time updates, in-depth analysis, and the latest on major global hotspots from South Asia to Ukraine and beyond.